What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena, True Crime and Mystery. I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Megan Mitchell. I'll put her at here. She gave me a super thanks, and I really want to say thank you very, very much for that. That was the first time I ever got something like that, so I think that's really, really nice, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you very, very much. Last video that I posted about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her chromosome microdeletion genetic disorder that she has, someone wrote a comment regarding Gypsy Rose Blanchard's doctors and was wanting some information. So I thought it might be a good time to kind of go in and re-explain who her doctors were and at which point in time they were her doctors and in which state, and kind of go through some of that information. And obviously there's been a couple of rumors that have circulated about the doctors, and including that one of them was her dad instead of Rod. Obviously we can't confirm every single thing because some of it is just rumors, and then some of it is just coming from the Blanchard family, which they aren't reliable sources, as we have all come to find out. But I do want to go over them and just touch on a few things. So let's just get into that really quick. I know personally, when I've been going through these records and, flipping back and forth and watching documentaries on Gypsy Rose Blanchard, it's crazy because she's had 3 doctors that were all named Robert something. So I feel like it's very easy and explains why people get confused about which doctor was where, or when they were treating her at what hospital, whenever they lived in Louisiana, or was it in Missouri, or various different things. And it's totally understandable, and I even just get mixed up myself on who did what and all of that. So first I want to sort through all of the doctors and just lay them out as they appear in the medical records and where they're from, because really she only had a couple of main doctors whenever she was at the Missouri Children's Mercy. So that's easier. It's more so just that they all have similar names. That makes it difficult. So let's go over that really quick. I'm going to go in reverse. So obviously, while they were living in Missouri, the doctor that discovered that she had the chromosome deletion was J.B. Le Pochon. I don't know if he's French or what, or if I'm even pronouncing his name right. I'm probably not. But that's who discovered that she had the chromosome microdeletion 121.1. And he actually sent a letter stating his findings of what he found and how they explain certain symptoms to Gypsy's PCP at Children's Mercy Hospital in Missouri, Dr. Robert Steele. Now, Dr. Robert Steele is the one that appeared in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard documentary series that was on Lifetime whenever she was in prison and going through the records or whatever. He may have been the one that actually contacted the Department of Children and Family Services on Dee Dee and Gypsy around that time, because when you're going through the records, you can see that the date of birth is switching back and forth between each visit. And the records, the time frame really only goes from the year 2000 to 2007. And there is some that are older, but it's the main bunch of them is from that point in time. And so when they get to Missouri, they didn't really even go see they didn't go for years to see their PCP. By the time that Gypsy was finding out that she had this chromosome deletion, she had not been back to the doctor in years. So there's this huge multiple year gap of seeing a doctor, which obviously we can pretty much see that means that Gypsy wasn't undergoing unnecessary treatments, doing all of these things that she claims that was happening. And it could be because maybe Dr. Steele called EHS on him, or it could be the fact that Dee Dee Blanchard was actively getting sicker and sicker and dealing with a lot of health issues. She had diabetes, she had cataracts, severe kidney stone problems. She had all kinds of issues, and her health was really in a decline whenever Gypsy was getting older. And I'm not sure the exact time it takes to get from Kansas City to Springfield, but it probably would be some sort of distance, and maybe it was getting harder and harder for Dee Dee to get to any of those appointments, or she just really felt like, well, Gypsy's okay for now and I don't really need to take her as often, which that could also be very likely as well.
Exuded just wild enthusiasm and gratefulness. Gypsy's demeanor didn't strike me as potentially unusual simply because I knew ahead of time that she had what was described as a developmental delay. I'm used to seeing parents being really resilient. Dee Dee was no different. The interactions between...
I do feel like it's so incredibly telling the way that Gypsy Rose Blanchard will flip back and forth between saying that she knew that something wasn't right and that her mom was abusive to her and that's why she had to do what she had to do, was kill or be killed, then to the complete opposite of the spectrum, saying, I had no idea I was being abused. I had no idea she was doing all that. I had no idea I was a part of all this fraudulent stuff. I feel just as strict as all of you guys. Like, I just feel like that is a bizarre thing to switch up on. Like, pick your side and stick to it. I would say, honestly, if I were you, probably go to the I knew I was gonna die type of thing, because it just seems a little bit more maybe justifiable to people that don't know you. But as far as like, yeah, I didn't even know I was being abused. Who would have thought? Yep, but you still ended her life. You know what I mean? Like, that's just bizarre. But again, that doctor that you just seen in the video discussing Dee Dee and Gypsy's relationship, and did you notice that he said some sort of muscular disorder? So whenever I tell you that I feel like it was Dee Dee saying she has some sort of muscular dystrophy, which is like a weakening of the muscles, so she's really technically not incorrect in a sense, because Gypsy did have muscle atrophy. Although Gypsy Rose would come back and be on Dr. Phil and say the test was normal, obviously Dr. Phil did not have the medical records in front of him to be able to just believe Gypsy and ask her, like, so you know about those results? And she's like, yep, they were normal. It was a really weird reaction. I'm gonna play it for you really quick, actually. I just thought it was really strange. Like, oh, yeah, it's normal. It was not normal.
Microcephaly, which is small head, that my brain didn't develop right, and I'll never mature past a 6-year-old's level, mental level.
Did you ever say to her, there's nothing wrong with me?
No.
You saw a doctor in New Orleans that did a muscle biopsy on you to check for muscular dystrophy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a muscle biopsy for muscular dystrophy is a very painful procedure.
I still have the scar.
Yeah, they strip muscle from your thigh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever know what the results were?
No, sir.
What do you know now about that?
It came back normal.
And she knew that?
I think that she did know that. If a doctor wouldn't give her the results that she wanted or say what she wanted them to say, she would switch to a different doctor.
Gypsy.
So another doctor that Gypsy Rose Blanchard allegedly had that you were probably more familiar with because he was in the Lifetime docuseries is Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein. Probably saying that wrong, but who cares? He honestly went on this show and lied. Same as Robert Steele. It's not even funny. He went on there saying that he wrote a letter because he had suspicions of Gypsy having Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and he confronted Dee Dee after he called Louisiana, and they said Gypsy's muscle biopsy was totally normal, which I've shown you multiple times that the muscle biopsy did not come back normal. That's a fact. It came back with type 2 muscle atrophy. So that doesn't even make any sense. And then on this same docuseries, he's saying he ordered MRIs and those were totally normal as well. But then you can look at the next sentence in the little clip that they put of that little document, and it quite literally shows that she has an issue with her spinal cord. It literally describes it right there. So why is he lying about it? I don't get it. I actually went and looked it up because I was trying to see if he was even actually in Missouri. Did he even see Gypsy? Because on the medical records that I have, I could not find a single document with anything related to Dr. Flasserstein. And on the docuseries where it shows the medical record, it has the doctor's name blurred out. So I'm not really entirely sure why they would do that if he's right there talking and he's obviously giving consent and she's obviously giving consent. I found that to be a little bit weird. And knowing that Gypsy had an MRI years earlier in Louisiana whenever she was in a car wreck, but regardless, I don't really know. I just found that to be like pretty odd. But he has worked in Florida for the longest time, but he did work in Missouri, but I couldn't find the dates for when his license was actually active or when he was working there, because he also worked in Ohio at another point, but he's been in Florida for a long time. But I just found that a little bit suspicious that he did that. I don't understand why a doctor who obviously probably doesn't need the money would go onto a documentary and then lie to the public in order to manipulate them on the behalf of someone that murdered their mother. And apparently after this thing, when he confronted Dee Dee, and this is the same situation where Gypsy stood up on her own, Dee Dee got so angry and stormed out and then switched doctors. And I think that would be Dr. Steele. But from what I read, he also worked in Mercy Hospital, but I also saw that he worked at St. John. So I don't know if those are totally different clinics or what the deal was with that. Because I had thought that Gypsy immediately started going to some Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. I don't get it. I find it very suspicious, but I don't know. I do know that documentaries lie, especially the one that is working around Gypsy Rose, because they have ulterior motives. We've obviously all realized that they are not being honest, and they just, I think the problem is people put trust in people that are making a documentary because you're claiming it as a documentary. So it's supposed to be true to what you're showing. So whenever they're saying, oh, it says totally normal, but the next sentence says something isn't normal, they know that people trust documentaries enough to accept it as a fact or whatever, to accept it as truth when it's actually not the truth. They're omitting information in order to manipulate the audience. And I don't like that. So this is always this is a reminder to never fully trust a docuseries of any kind. You always have to do your own research. You cannot trust sources that may have ulterior motives, even content creators. You cannot trust content creators 1000% to where you're willing to fight to the death for them. I don't get that whole thing. I see so many people going into comments and attacking for the content creators on their behalf. It's interesting to me. I remember I got freaking tore up in the comments on TikTok because I said that Gypsy and Nick did not want to name their baby girl Aurora, and that anything in the available documents that everybody has that are covering this case, the police files, all of the records, the text, she never one time brought up that she was naming the baby girl Aurora. And then now, as time has passed, there's been some new messages come out from Allena and Gypsy that literally says they had thought about the name Gabriella or something. So it's you guys were, not you guys, but some people were, I had 300 comments on that video just tearing me up. For real, I was I don't care. Prove it. Prove it. You say it, prove it. I'll prove it. I made another video posting every single text message that's available because they said it's in the text messages. But then the content creators that are manipulating the public or whoever's are spreading the rumors, they don't come back and correct. And I feel like if you are doing something and you're putting information out into the world, you have a responsibility to at least be humble enough to be yeah, I messed up. I was wrong. I was incorrect. Willing to accept the mistake and correct it. It's not that big of a deal unless you don't do that. I don't know, but I'm someone that's I don't like to be misinformed about things. Because then when somebody goes and tells somebody else, and they go and tell somebody else, and then they hear the real information, then they're saying, no, you're stupid. And you can present all the evidence in the world, but then they're like, oh, all 5,000 of us aren't going to misremember. But yeah, if you're all listening to the same people that are all spreading the same misinformation, yes, that's exactly how it happens. I don't know. That was a whole side rant, but crazy. Anyway, let's move on. But other than like random emergency room doctors, Gypsy wasn't going to the doctor too much whenever she was in Missouri. She just really wasn't. She wasn't getting a whole huge amount of things done. It was more so when she was little, like the surgeries and stuff like that. That's when all of that was really happening, because she really didn't have that many surgeries. That's just, she had quite a few on her eyes and then some on her ears, for her hearing and ear infections and stuff like that. But it wasn't like major, getting an organ removed and like getting all these various like very crazy abnormal surgeries, going into her brain or stuff like that. It wasn't like that. So in Tulane, in Louisiana, whenever they were living in like Slidell, they would go to the Tulane University Hospital. It was like a school type of hospital for kids, or probably for anyone, but it was like a university style of hospital, which they're pretty good about doing certain things about disorders or things that aren't as common, which honestly was a good place for Gypsy to be, considering that, like I said in my last video, there was nothing known about her chromosome disorder, and it really still, there's not a lot known. But in Louisiana, her doctors were Michael Kiernan, Dr. Robert Gordon, so that's the second Robert, and I'm going to probably really butcher these other names, Mustafi Nachavi, Mortar Shamsnia, James T. Bennett, he was a surgeon, Gregory Wisdom was a surgeon. Some of these include dentists, so like it's not necessarily like I know they're doctors, but not like a medical doctor performing, things on her. Like she was just switching and going to different doctors. They were just different specialists that she would see. So it's not like how she wants to kind of portray it as, my mom would get mad and switch doctors. Like, no, you just had various specialists. One of these doctors on this list is for the sleep study. One is a pulmonologist to help with her breathing because she had asthma. Various things. Her eye doctor. ENTs, nose and throat doctor. And Carlos Garcia was an emergency room doctor. And then the other one that people believe that, like, in some strange way, they thought that Dr. Robert Beckerman was Gypsy's secret dad, and that Dee Dee and Robert Beckerman had an affair or something, which that would be a plot twist, wouldn't it? But I don't know if I necessarily believe that. He was more so when she was like really, really little. But it's not all the same doctors that they like followed to Missouri to be with. I know I've heard that rumor that they left Louisiana to follow a doctor, but that's not true. And then oh my gosh, it's Narong Sima Kajorn Boone. She did the sleep study, Maduri Dixit. And there's some other ones that are just literally like ER doctors, the on-call doctors. Nobody remembers them or actually considers ER doctors like your actual doctor. Unless I guess you're Gypsy. But most of the time when you're going into an emergency room or an urgent care, you're not like claiming those as your doctor and then passing it off as like you had to switch doctors because you have your primary as your doctor. You know what I mean? This is Dr. Beckerman. This is the guy. I mean, obviously they think that he looks similar to Gypsy in the nose, but I don't believe that, honestly. I just really don't. But I mean, I don't know. I would think Rod would be at least smart enough to maybe get a DNA test on Gypsy. But regardless, I do feel like Gypsy does have the characteristics of the Blanchard family. Dr. Beckerman again. Because, I mean, Gypsy didn't arrive in Springfield till she was a little bit older. I want to say maybe like 13, 14 years old. So she very easily could have been taking a picture or just saw Dr. Beckerman and remembered him and wanted a picture. something like that. But either way, the guy that was in the documentary, Dr. Robert Steele, despite receiving a detailed letter saying that Gypsy Rose Blanchard tested positive for this genetic chromosome microdeletion, 1q, whatever I say all the time. But he wrote a thorough letter. I'm going to put it on here so you can see it. He made sure that Dr. Robert Steele was aware of this, so I am almost confused as to why Dr. Robert Steele would still choose to go on and make the claims or, put out some information that is not correct for the sake of a documentary. I don't know if he was concerned about maybe people coming back against him and saying, why didn't you do anything? Or maybe trying to get ahead of something. I don't really know, but it's likely because he was probably the one that called the Department of Children and Family Services, and that's why they wanted him on there, to show that he had concerns. But regardless, that's how that happened. So I'm just confused about the whole Robert Steele thing, because he should be well aware that Gypsy has this microdeletion, and then if he goes back and looks at the notes, I don't know. But in the documentary, he goes on to say that usually there is a triggering event whenever a child is little that can, snowball into the Munchausen syndrome by proxy and develop into this huge big thing. So they think it may have been with the whole sleep apnea thing, which Gypsy did have issues. The sleep study came back abnormal, and you can't just fake a sleep study because they are looking at your brain and seeing if it's awake or asleep and monitoring things like that. So they'll know if you're not sleeping. So that's just a ridiculous thing to say she did a sleep study or didn't have sleep apnea or whatever. I don't understand that. And honestly, it's no different than parents getting the little Owlet sock for their babies, that will monitor them if they stop breathing, kind of in a way to combat the SIDS risk with babies. It's like a little peace of mind type of thing. So it's really not that crazy of a thing to think that maybe Dee Dee was worried about her not breathing. That is something that babies actually do tend to do a lot. They'll just stop breathing. They'll just forget because I don't know why, but regardless, just to clarify and kind of go through who those doctors are, I personally don't see that any one of these doctors are the father of Gypsy. I really don't. But I guess never say never. I don't really know. I think it's funny, of course. I think it's a funny rumor, but I don't really believe it, type of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think it was Robert Steele that did call. I want to say maybe he did admit to it in the documentary. I'll have to go back and recheck, but I'm pretty sure he said that he was the one that did it. But honestly, yeah, probably should, considering that every other record they're changing Gypsy's birthday from 91, 93, and 95. It's honestly funny. Nobody caught this? Because you have to go and put that information in there. So I don't really understand why they would just keep changing it back and forth. Usually you'd be like, what are we doing here? That's, I don't, even if Dee Dee was changing her birthday, is probably just to get benefits or something a little bit longer. And the fact that Gypsy's I really believed it at 14. She just rolled me back a few years, but also wants to claim that she's not delayed in any sort of way. But to believe that you just subtracted 3 years of existence off your life and fully and wholeheartedly believe it, no questions asked, you kind of have to be, But obviously, I don't believe that she actually believed it. I mean, I think she was well aware, and you can go through, there's so many different things that point to that she actually knew how old she was. I mean, clearly she found her birth certificate or whatever information, her Medicaid card. So I don't think it was that big of a deal that she wants to make it out to be. But whatever. So I hope that kind of helps, so you can, as you hear things, or if you hear anything, it kind of piques you can recall it a little bit easier going through the doctors and who is who, especially because of all the Roberts that are there. A little bit ridiculous. So there you go. I will see you guys next time. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys next time. Bye.